Latiu. So we would ask that can we just have Dr. Veronica Theron to introduce herself first, and then we can continue as we introduce ourselves.
Good evening, colleagues. Morning, afternoon. It is a pleasure to join you, all the young, spirited ones. It seems to me I will be one of the seniors on this chat tonight, but I'm looking forward. I'm a social worker by profession. Currently, I'm the gender and child protection specialist in one-stop center established by the former First Lady, and I'm from Namibia.
Welcome, Dr. Veronica. We can't wait to hear your engagements. So I'm just going to call out the speakers according to how I see them on my screen. So Mrs. Madigizela Teu, can you please introduce yourself for the chat room?
Thank you so much for the invite, first of all. I am not sure if there are people who are joining and who seem to be struggling with coordinating their mics and their videos. Are you able to sort of pick them up as they come in and assist them because they're giving feedback?
Okay. I'm just gonna go and mute everybody as they come in.
Right.
If you can share the right Zola with me, I will assist you where I can.
Perfect. Make host. Thank you.
Right. So thank you so much again for the invite, colleagues. As I said on the chat earlier, my name is Busi. Everybody knows me by the name Busi. My surname is Madigizela Teu. I'm currently based in the Eastern Cape, and I'm affiliated with the University of Fort Hare. Was teaching last year the NQF level 7 and NQF level 8 with the Fort Hare University. And also I'm affiliated with the University of the Free State, looking at their curriculum and advising on that from practice to theory in terms of alignment in that space. So I think I will leave it at that. And yeah, I did say I'm from Umtata, which is South Africa. I see we've got international guests as well. So maybe if I clarify South Africa, Eastern Cape, Umtata, that's where I'm based at the moment. So thank you everyone for sharing this space with me.
Thank you so much, Busi. Thank you very much for that introduction. We can't wait to hear your input. So I'd ask then Mr. Michael Watson to give us his input. And I know you're not anywhere near here where we are. So good evening. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Let's unmute you. Mr. Watson, I think you have...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a good evening. And thank you so much. Thank you everyone for inviting me. I appreciate immensely to have an opportunity to speak in this way, in this forum. I'm so grateful for it. And yes, I'm from the UK. I've been a social worker for many years, more years than I wish to remember, but at least over 30 years I've been a social worker. And I specialize really in working with children and families and working with the courts. And that's very, it's very pertinent in relation to the stress and the pressure and the need and the importance of self-care, because it's vital for all social workers, wherever you're working, whoever you're involved with. But I want to say just that I don't know, because I've never been to South Africa, so my experience is really from the UK, and so I'll just... Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Apologies.
So That's all right, no, fine. So, my experience is all from the UK, and when I'm talking about things, I'm talking about it from the UK perspective, and hopefully there'll be some overlap with your experience in South Africa and the other parts of the continent. Okay,
Thank you.
so that's my introduction.
Thank you so much, Mr. Watson. And I think what I love about this space is it's not just a few people from one set of one group of areas. It's all over the world, and we get to share our perspectives and maybe also share insights as to how things are working for you. And we could share notes and ways, techniques of how we are all coping in terms of our profession in social work. So I think this is a beautiful platform where we get to communicate with other like-minded people all over the world. So thank you so much for availing yourself.
Thank you.
So next on the list, we have Komoto Jongman. I don't know if I'm saying your surname correctly, but Dr. Komoto Jongman, if you could please share your introduction.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My surname is Afrikaans, so it's young man.
Okay.
Depending where you are. So the first name is Homoto. I'm currently teaching at the University of Botswana. Teaching youth development mostly and policy. I'm interested in issues of youth development, youth entrepreneurship, positive youth development. That is my interest, and I'm also running a private organization called Joe Speaks, where I'm called Dr. Joe from Jongmen. Dr. Joe is a brand name. It's JZO. So in my private organization, I'm doing motivation. I'm doing social skills training. I'm also doing counseling and life coaching. So I'm happy to be here today to share my journey as a social worker with you. I've been on the field for the past 15 years, I think. So I'm not too young, but I'm young at heart. So yeah, I'm ready to interact with you and enjoy the time that we are going to have together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Youngman, Dr. Joe. I hope you don't mind if I call you Dr. Joe. Thank you very much for that introduction. We can't wait to hear your input. And then we have, lastly but not least, Mr. Calvin Nyamanzao, who will then give us his introduction before we can get started.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me clearly.
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
thank you so much. I'm sorry I cannot switch to video. Actually, I'm in congestion, so I just had to park by the roadside. Let me just try, maybe you could probably see my video. So I'm actually right now in my car, but because I didn't want to miss this conversation, so I just had to park by the roadside so to engage with other colleagues. So yeah, my name is Calvin Nyamadzao, and I'm a social worker by profession. And currently I'm working with this other organization, which advocates and lobby for the rights of persons with disabilities, so that there's the equalization of opportunities, and also to do with all the discriminations, misconceptions, myths regarding issues to do with disability. And I am happy to be here with everyone and also to learn a lot from our, experienced learned colleagues. Thank you so much. Over.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kelvin Nyamanzao. So those were all our introductions. Mrs. Pearl Chabalala, can you take us into our session?
Thank you so much, Zola. Well, good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon to the ones who've just joined us. So today is going to be a space where we just engage, where we just talk. And the topic that was decided was self-care for social workers. And I think it is a very significant topic working in the profession, because we are having a lot of our colleagues go through stages of things like stress, things like burnout, and it's always battling with me the fact that there's so many of us within the profession, but you'll find others who are battling and get to the point of wanting to leave the profession. And I think social work, it's a beautiful space, and this is a conversation where we would like to just engage and talk about how we as social workers, as people who serve others, how we can also take care of ourselves so that we are better, starting from the inside, going to the outside, so that we are able to help the communities that will help us. You know, there's a saying that it starts with you. And I do believe that when it comes to self-care, it really starts with us. We need to be able to better care for ourselves so that we're better care to the next people that we serve within our communities. Then I do believe that we have Mrs. Matikizela Thewu, who has a lovely presentation that she's going to do for us that will give us a bit of context and start us off within the conversation. I don't know, Zola, if we can jump straight to her, or if there's something that maybe you'd like to touch on before we get into it.
No, that's perfect. So Mrs. Matikizela Tewu, would you can you share your screen so that we can see the presentation? I don't know if you have such rights.
Wait, do I have the right?
All right. I'm not sure if you can see my screen, but if it doesn't work, like social workers do in the difficult spaces that we work in, we are going to improvise. We're not going to waste time.
Yes,
Really.
that's true. That's true.
We're not going to waste time. I just want to see.
So there's a green button on my screen. There's a green button that says share screen. I don't know if you have it at the bottom there.
I've got it. Let me see. Okay. Let me allows them to share your screen. Okay. Okay. So a second.
No problem.
I don't think this is going to work. I'm operating from a new laptop and it wants me now to do e-settings. So I'm going to leave it.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
Yes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from because I prepared both on a Word document, and I'm just going to orate what I have prepared, if that is okay with everyone.
That's perfect.
All right. So in my preparation for this conversation, and as I say, I wasn't sure what the format is going to look like. I thought about social workers as a pressure cooker. So if you can imagine a pressure cooker and the different components of the pressure cooker, when you're thinking about the pressure cooker itself, are the stresses, the various stresses, the emotions and challenges that accumulate within the social work environment itself. So, and it's the different demanding nature of social work, dealing with high pressure situations, dealing with the challenges that we normally deal with in our different sectors that we work in as social workers. Then I thought about the lid And the lid for me represents the boundaries that we need to set as social workers, establishing and maintaining personal and professional boundaries. And the fact that it is very crucial for us to do that, because we come into spaces where we are always sharing or always receiving emotional stimulus and emotional feedback from our clients. And so being able to manage that kind of pressure through the lid of your pressure cooker being the boundaries. This steam valve, now I'm talking about the old pressure cookers, the ones that you had to open up the steam valve. Do you remember those?
Yes.
I'm showing my age now. I'm closer to my colleague in Namibia. So those old pressure cookers where you open the steam valve, for me, they represent communication. So effective communication serves as the steam valve for a social worker, expressing your emotions, seeking support, and communicating needs. Communicating your needs is essential in terms of releasing the build-up. Remember, we talked about the boundaries, we talked about the environment, the pressure cooker itself, as it's accumulating steam, all of the environment that we deal with, the emotions, the different clients that we deal with. Communication is very important. You need to open that valve, because otherwise the pressure builds up. Then you have something called the gasket. The gasket is a little ring that you put, it's like a rubber ring that is in between the lid and the pot itself. So self-care practices act as the gasket for a social worker. Regularly assessing and adjusting self-care strategies is essential to maintain resilience and to prevent burnout. And then lastly, I want to talk about, or rather second last, I want to talk about the foundation or the base of the pot itself, which is the need for a strong support system, including friends, families, and colleagues from the profession, from different professions as well. And having a reliable foundation and support is very crucial for navigating the challenges within the profession. Then lastly, I just want to touch on the timer. So the timer, for me, represents establishing a work-life balance, which serves as the timer for the social worker. Knowing when to step away from work and taking breaks and engaging in personal activities is vital for the prevention of burnout. So because I don't have my presentation with my beautiful pictures that would have given you a nice visual of what my thoughts are, although Aubrey has got the presentation, so maybe I should have communicated with him to put it. It doesn't matter. I think what is important is for you to look at your career, look at your life from a daily, week, monthly, quarterly, and year kind of set, and be intentional about what you are planning to be able to make sure that you plan for the prevention of burnout. So I think what I will do is I will just stop there, because I'm sure that a lot of the colleagues have got different ideas, and maybe I might have touched on them. I don't want to eat the cake by myself. And I'll give over to you and the other speakers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Matigizela Teu. I think that was such an insightful and holistic view of self-care for a social worker, and just all the things that impact us, be it our work, be it our ability for boundaries, and then in essence, how then do we look after ourselves, considering everything else that we go through or we have to encounter in the field. So without hogging the space, I would love it if we can have our speakers give their insight as to how they're approaching this topic, whether they're going to also speak on to what Mrs. Matigizela Teu has spoken about, or they have their own views. We'd love to hear and then be able to engage with each one's point of view. I want to ask that for our listeners to please mute your mics so that we do not have the disturbances between the speakers. It is distracting. So if you could just please mute your mic. If there's a thought that you have, an idea or an input you'd like to pose, please feel free to use the chat box so that we can go through your chats later on after our speakers have spoken, and then also maybe hear one or two views or questions from the floor. So I would ask for, I don't know which speaker would like to go first. It's open to the floor. Yes, go for it, Dr. Veronica. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Self-care for me is essential and it's non-negotiable. Self-care is when you believe that you are worthy of that care. And it comes with self-awareness, because so often we give and we are not taking, meaning you literally run on empty. And we know what happened to a vehicle or a car with an empty tank. You stuck. And so often you are stuck at places where you were not supposed to, where it's dangerous and stuff. We also have a misconception that self-care is only physical. If I think of us as females, many a times you think self-care is going to the hair salon, getting a nice piece of outfit, getting your hair or nails done, things like that. But we forget that there is, apart from the personal self-care, there's also mental, emotional, spiritual, economic, all the different components of self-care. And if we are not taking care of all the different components, you literally lopsided like a vehicle with one tire flat. And can you imagine, the discomfort? And even your clients, your colleagues, people around you will notice that there's an imbalance. There's something a little bit off. And it is important and I think vital for us to know the indicators. When is it that I need to stop and fuel my car? Because you need to fill your tank in order for you to continue. You need to put oil in the lamp for the lamp to keep burning. So also as workers, we juggle so many balls, try to keep them all in the air. When I listen to the introductions, it's like you're a social worker, you have a practice, maybe you have a small business on the side, you have a spouse or a partner, you have children, and you're a student. So most important for me is, and I think what I've learned the hard way as a social worker is to try to identify and differentiate between your glass balls and your rubber balls. Because your rubber ball, you can let it go and it can bounce back. But if you shatter a glass ball, your marriage, your relationship with your child, it's something that you cannot go back and pick up. It's difficult if you pick it up and you put the pieces together. So there's a fine line between juggling. What is it that I need to keep in the air when I'm juggling? Is it my glass ball? Is it the rubber ball? A last one for me now is when you compete with yourself, you get better. But when you compete with others, you get better. And so often on our career ladder, on our path, we begin to compete, and that is where the burnout comes, that is where the stress comes, the anxiety, and all the other mental health challenges. So for now, I will submit and also give chance to the other speakers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Theron. I think that was
Thank you so
very
much, Dr. Veronica. Kelvin, your hand is up. Kelvin, you can go ahead, Mr. Kelvin.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to add on to what Doc has said, to say that as a social workers, the ongoing need.
I'm not sure if it's me, but
Yeah, it's not you. I also thought it was only me. It
Can I
seems
just-
like it's frozen.
Calvin, we're losing you. I'm not sure the network is, so maybe you can switch off your video. I think that usually helps in terms of the connection if you switch the video.
And because with the interference, we also have
I think we've lost Calvin.
It's dropped.
Okay, so we'll allow him to. Oh, there he is. Hey, Calvin.
yeah. So very sorry, very sorry. My network is tripping. Very sorry.
Okay, no problem. You can go ahead.
Okay, so so I was saying it is always critical, to as social workers, to take time for self-reflection, and also to rest and also to relax, and also to go for clinical supervision. Because the moment that we try to neglect our self-care, in as much as we would want to help people in vulnerable communities out there, in most cases we end up experiencing burnout, a lot of it, which is something that is really not good, also to our physical health, and most importantly, to our mental health. So yeah, it is true indeed that we really need, to take care of ourselves as social workers, in as much as we endeavor to help vulnerable children, vulnerable people, vulnerable populations and communities out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Thank you for that input. I love that we're all speaking on the similar things, and we're building on the self-care document that we could put together for social workers to use and to speak to every now and again when they're going through something. So I'd like to also give maybe Mr. Watson, if you would please give us your view. Your mic.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now
Yes.
we can hear
I was
you.
just saying, I was just saying thank you very much to the speakers who've already spoken and their insights, which have been very helpful. I was thinking when I was preparing this to give my speech today that really self-care is really no. Let me put it another way. The most important thing, one of the things that we learn, we don't learn lots of things in school, but there's some things that we don't learn which are so vital. One of the things really is about relationships. Relationships are so important. We don't learn much about them. But what I would go on to say is that the most important relationship is not with the others, not with other people, but the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. How you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, how you talk about yourself. And that is so crucial because how you think about yourself and talk about yourself and feel about yourself determines your self-esteem, but also determines what you produce and how creative and how successful you are. Now, unfortunately, in social work, and I suspect it's the same in South Africa, but if it isn't, you can tell me. But certainly in the UK, in social work, it's always associated. It's very much associated with negative things. unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity around social workers and the work that we do with children and with other vulnerable people. There's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of blame, and there's a lot of violence. And because of that, what happens is that that can rub off on you. That can rub off on you. That can affect your self-esteem. That can affect how you see yourself, how you see the work that you do. And so it's really important that you get actually what I would say is that self-care is not just something that is it's nice to do or something. It's something, it's vital, it's essential for your well-being, it's essential for your survival. And we all need to be committed, totally committed. We all need to be totally committed to our self-care for several reasons. One of the reasons is because, and the main reason is because what we're doing when you're being a social worker, when you're engaging with clients, when you work with clients, and it's something that was reflected in what one of the other speakers has already said, is that you're giving of yourself, you're giving of your emotions, you're giving of your care, you're giving of your time, you're giving of your energy. And so what's important is that you're always continuously giving back to yourself. And that, you know, keeping that, someone used the analogy of a car running on empty. That is vital, that you know, whether you're a vessel, whatever, that you're continuously filling yourself up. Because we work with, you know, we don't work by ourselves, we work in an environment, we work within organizations. And those organizations are under pressure as well. Sometimes they want you to continuously focus on the needs of the child or the client or the vulnerable person, and they want you to put them first. And I can understand that it's important, because they're a vulnerable person, they're vulnerable communities, they need to be put first. But whilst you're putting them first, whilst you're meeting their needs and to the best of your abilities, you have to also be always thinking about giving yourself, putting yourself, you can't put yourself first, put yourself as close to first as you can, because it is vital. You cannot help others unless you help yourself. You can't keep giving to others unless you yourself are healthy. And you know, part of my presentation today, I've got quite a bit of statistics, which I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to just give you one or two statistics about why it's vital to help to fill up your cup, to replenish yourself, replenish your emotions, to think about how you're feeling. Because self-care is not just about, you know, doing nice things with yourself. It's important to do that, and it's important to take care of yourself. But self-care is also asking yourself, how do I feel? What's going on? Listening to the inner voice, to what's going on inside of you. Listening to your feelings. Listen to your experiences. Listening to what you're saying to yourself. Because it's all about emotions. It's all about feelings, and there's nothing more important than the emotions and feelings. So you have to make sure that you take that on board. Make sure you value them. Make sure you value what you're saying and what you're thinking about, because it's important. You do that, you ignore that at your peril. And if you ignore that, then you're not only going to be able to, you know, it's not only going to harm you, it's going to harm the people in your family, and it's also going to harm the vulnerable people that you want to work with. Now, what I just briefly want to say, I just want to give a couple of bits of statistics.
Sorry, Mr. Watson, I think you've muted yourself again.
Yeah,
We
he went
can't
back on
hear
mute.
One of the things it would be the right time. Someone's trying to
It's
ring
okay.
is that what was it now? It's throwing me. But yes, one of the surveys that was found recently was that every 30 minutes in the UK, it may be different from where you are in South Africa, every 30 minutes a health and social care worker is being attacked. every 30 minutes. So what we have, you know, as I say, it may be different in South Africa, but what we have in the UK is a lot of people don't value us. A lot of people will want to blame, will want to criticize, will want to attack if they don't get the services they want, if a child's if a child is killed, sometimes if a child's removed, if something else happens that they don't like. And we live in a society where we rather blame than take responsibility, and that's what's happening. And all that, for those reasons, and I think the other thing I would say is that from the time I've been doing social work, I compare social workers to dartboards. I can't compare them to dartboards because everyone feels they've got the right to throw darts at you. Some sort of criticism, some sort of blame, some sort of negativity. And if you don't take care of yourself, you are gonna, you know, go down with your mental health problems. There's going to be anxiety. There's going to be concerns about your health, concerns about your physical health, concerns about your emotional ability, your willingness to continue to do the job. All of that will be affected and impacted because of that. So it's so important on so many levels that you understand that and are constantly doing what you can. I wouldn't say you just do one thing with self-care. I'd say you pick out a number of things. You look at, and I'll just give you an example. Go to the gym, remain healthy, go away, go to holidays, take holidays whenever you can. Be around positive people who support you, who have a good mindset, who support you and are caring towards you. Yeah. Make sure that you smell the roses. Go to places that are nice, beautiful places. You know, don't go to nice parks, gardens, museums. Listen to good music. Anything that keeps you up. Listen to great poetry. Listen to words of encouragement that lift you up. Do all of those things and all of it more all the time, and decide to commit yourself to it. Now, I said a lot, but all I'm saying is this is not something that you do once in a while. This is something you make a habit. You are consistent with it. And just in the same way that you care for clients, do use the same way that you would care for clients on yourself, because you need it. And you know what else? You deserve it. Yeah. So that's what I'd want to say to you. I hope that was useful.
That was so useful. Thank you so much, Mr. Watson. I mean, for me, it's the pouring into your cup that stands out and the ways in which you can do so. And also just to have grace upon yourself, because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to perform. We take work home and we want to do all sorts of, superwoman, superman things. And I think that also is very detrimental for our well-being. So just so that we can move on to the next speaker, I'm going to ask that Dr. Homotso Youngman give his input, and then I think Pearl can take us through the questions with our speakers as well as the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for the opportunity. I'm going to be short because majority of the speakers have really talked about the issue. I'm going to try and make it more practical. So today I was preparing, I was from the farm. I told Aubrey that I might not be able to be with you because I'm moving to the farm. So as I was coming from the farm, in my mind, I was preparing for today's presentation. What is self-care in social work? And the most important aspect that came to my mind was that as social workers, we like to do for others while we neglect ourselves. You would not take annual leave because you are putting your clients first. And your clients will survive and you die. And immediately after you've died, your post is going to be advertised to the next social worker available. And in the meantime, while they're advertising it, your clients will continue with life. Your clients will continue with life. So until we become more conscious that we need to take care of ourselves, and that on its own will help the clients to benefit more from our new and renewed energy every time, we are going to give a mediocre service because we want to impress our clients. We need to disengage at some point. So these were the thoughts in my mind. These were the preparations that I was making in my mind as I was driving. I got to the office. I had, mind you, it started in the morning where I had a master's class from 8 o'clock in the morning up until 11 o'clock. And it started before that because I started preparing at 5 o'clock so that by 8 o'clock I should be at the university. So it started at 5. So I had the 3 hour and then I had to rush to the farm. And then coming back, I had to do 2 clients. And then after that, I was working on uploading a video on my podcast. And the network was not working. Time was running out. I got tired. And then I said, you know what? I'll upload tomorrow. Then I moved out, got into my car. I saw this car moving behind me. And I just assumed it is gone. And then I hit the car. As I was reversing, I hit the car. Go. And now I have to get out of the car, negotiate. Fortunately, it was not a big bump. It was just the colors mixing. So when I got into the car, I said to myself, do I really, really take care of myself? Do I really believe and do what I was going to talk about? And I realized that sometimes the social expectations, sometimes the family expectations are pushing us not to take care of ourselves. Because especially as a man, you have to be a provider. You have to take care of this and that. You have to work. So all those, they accumulate to a point where now you are no longer alive to things around you, but rather you are working on routine because that has been implanted into your subconscious. You're no longer thinking of what you are doing. You are zombing through the things. So that is when the next one came and said, Dr. J, there's a shoot on Sunday. Can you please be available for the shoot? I said, no, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to take time out. I need to drink my coffee. I need to walk on the farm. I need to refresh. I need to read. I need to be away from everything else. So sometimes we talk about the things that we don't even implement in our lives. And now, with whatever happened today, I realized that it was going to be a theoretical presentation, but with hitting somebody's car, now it is practical to say, at some point in our lives, we need to stop, disengage, and connect with ourselves. Sometimes we need to be in solitude with ourselves so that we may fill the cup. And when we filled our cup, we go out and make a difference. Let us not be shy to say no. Let us not be shy to disengage. Let us not be shy to say, you know what, I prioritize myself. Because we keep on prioritizing other people who don't prioritize us. When it comes to social work practice in Botswana, every time when the president, the minister, the member of parliament, the councillor, the village development committee, whenever they have a meeting, the complaint is about the social worker. It is always about the social worker. We need to be superhuman beings to meet people's expectations. But we are all human. We can do as much. So it is the right moment as we are starting the new year that you ask yourself, do I prioritize myself? And the reality, this reality, I think Dr. from Namibia is here. This is the reality. On Sunday, two weeks back, I think 2 or 3 weeks back, Namibia lost the president. May his soul rest in peace. In the evening, his wife was called former first lady. Immediately. So in vernacular, they say, le pele ga o tsidihala, ba tla be ba setse ba bone yo mongwe to replace you. So what I was saying is, if we are not going to take care of ourselves, when we die, even before we get cold, they are going to find someone to act on your behalf. In a month's time, you are going to be replaced. And in 6 months, they would have forgotten you. The people who are going to be able to remember that you've been putting more effort are your family, your children, your partner are the ones who are going to be remembering that you woke up early, you slept late. Any other person will move on with life. If we are not going to take care of ourselves, no one will do. I hope I did not take much time. I'm a speaker, so I speak for a living. So I might take some time. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. That is very eye-opening. And the irony is that when we have clients and when we preach about self-care to clients, we always tell them, put yourself first, fill your own cup, while we ourselves, as professionals, we are running on empty. But here we are preaching to everybody else to take care of themselves while we don't. And I think it's also one of those things that as social workers, what is it or what can we do to ensure that we promote our own self-care without feeling the guilt? And I would like to pose this on Dr. Veronica, because that guiltiness that we have, I'm going to take leave, who's going to take care of my clients, I'm going to take some time off, how are things going to run in the office? It feels like the world is going to stop when we are not there. But then it's very important for us to fill our own cups. So to you, Dr. Veronica, how can we as social workers fill our own cups without feeling the guiltiness of not being present for someone else, but being present for ourselves?
I think an elderly colleague of mine once said, there is life after social work. So if you only identify as a social worker, you will put all your energy only in that. So if you put yourself on your own priority list and you take care of your overall well-being so that you can be the best version of yourself. Because if you can only give what you have. If I am empty, what is it that I can give to a client, to a friend? But if I overflow, if I take time to self-reflect, one of the speakers said, you basically take stock of your own needs, of your own goals, of your own achievements. It's like, where do I see myself in 5 years' time and stuff? Then you give out of overflow. You give out of abundance. I'm a social worker for more than 33 years. And I once referred a client to a social worker. And the client said to me, I've been to the social worker, but I think she's in a more worst off emotional state than I am. So how can you refer me to that social worker? So people, if they come to you and you are depleted, you have a self-pity party, you financially in a very bad state and stuff, clients will feel it because you will basically project onto your clients what you have. So if your client step out of your office, they must feel energized. They must feel, if this social worker can do it, I can do it too. So it's also the energy that you oosh, that your presence bring into an office. So for me, what I've also experienced is social workers are sometimes perfectionists. They are A-gamers. They are high achievers. And they're very compassionate and passionate. Now, the more compassionate and passionate you are, the higher the risk for burnout, the higher the risk for vicarious traumatization, another word, secondary trauma, because you really live for your client's story and situation. You go home with it, and it's like the first colleague said, it's a pressure cooker. So also, like, some people use us as dumping places. They come and dump, and we don't have an outlet. If you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a place where you can go and offload, it's like a computer or your cell phone. Sorry, storage full. You cannot do anything with your device if your storage is full. So have a mentor, and really somebody you can trust, and you can just be yourself. When I did my master's through the University of South Africa, the lecturer right in the beginning gave us an exercise, basically to complete our own funeral letter. And that was a huge eye-opener for me, because who will be the last person that you want to come to your sick bed? Who is the person that you so much wanted to say thank you, but you never took the time? Who is the last person that you want to pray with? Little things like that. And that day I realized that it is not things that money can buy. It's not your exotic hotels, the fancy flights and stuff. It's the people closest to you. So make time for that. Like Dr. Joe said, it takes a few seconds. Somebody said, if you fill in a bathtub, as long as it will take for that water to flow out, that is how long people will think about you after your death. So, as I said in the beginning, it's essential. And then you will also know what to prioritize. Know the signs of burnout. Know yourself. Forgive yourself if you made mistakes and stuff, so that you also know your weaknesses and strength. What is it that I can take on? What is not for me? I worked with a client for many years in a specialized police unit with a colleague, and the colleague was honest to say, Veronica, the sexual abuse thing, it is really not for me. Rather give me the domestic violence cases and the violence against children cases, and you rather work with the sexual offenses, because it does something to my inner being. So know yourself, know your strength, know when to call it a day. So from my end, I cannot reiterate enough. It's like self-awareness, self-confidence. If you're not confident in yourself, you will think saying no is a sin. But if you know your limits and you know your worth,
Yes. Oh my word,
you
that's so
will say
amazing.
no without feeling guilty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Veronica. That is very significant, being aware of your own self when your own strengths, your own ability to be able to work in the space. And if you feel that something is not resonating with you, being able to say, you know what, this is not the space for me. Social work is so vast and there are a lot of opportunities, but then it also brings the question of how do we take care of ourselves without losing the passion? Because it feels like people get to that point where the passion now goes away because you are so tired and you're so burnt out. And I'm putting you on the spotlight, Mr. Watson. I can see your hand. Please jump in there.
Yes, I think it's important that we all talk about how we want to put our clients first and how important that is, and we know that. But in doing so, we have to always remember that we have to put ourselves first, as close to first as we can, and feeling guilty about it doesn't. Guilt is one of those things that doesn't help anyone. Guilt doesn't help because it's something that actually doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't help you. You have a right, and I think that this is the thing about social workers. We don't see ourselves as being important enough. We're important in some ways. We are not just important in terms of what we can do with other people or with our clients. We are important within our own right. Yeah? And it's so important that we use the empathy we have with our clients and with the people we work with, but we use that empathy on ourselves also. We have to see ourselves. We have to see ourselves as not just a social worker, not just we are human being. We need all the values, all the positive things that we need, positive and the negative things within ourselves. And before I forget, because it's something that's on my mind, when a lot of the times we're working, we're not realizing that we're working with stress all the time, because we're worried about children, we're worried about elderly people, we're worried about vulnerable people. That worry, that level of worry, that concern about what's going to happen is stress. And we can all deal with stress for short periods of time. We can all have spikes of stress and we can deal with it, no problem. But when you're dealing with it on a long, consistent period of time, which is what we as social workers do, that reduces or undermines your immune system. And that is why it is so vital, because that's why you lose. You lose. It's like a circle. You go around, you lose more people because you're not taking care of yourself. Social workers aren't taking care of themselves, so they lose, or they die, or they're sick. And yes, they're right. Someone else is just replaced. You're replaced. But basically, in that process, what's happening is that you are making it possible that more people aren't able to be cared for, because it takes a while before someone else comes in. And if they do come in, sometimes they come in straight away, but what you're doing really is you're taking care of yourself, and therefore if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of other clients. You can't do it. And I hope that makes sense, because I may be putting it so bravely, but you have to have that insight that you're looking out for yourself, but you're looking out for your clients. But in doing so, you're also looking out for yourself and everyone else, because we're all interrelated as well. And that's something else I think we all forget. We're all interrelated, and we don't achieve anything on our own. But most importantly, if you don't care for yourself, there's no way you can achieve all the things you want to achieve. And I think that's all I wanted to say, really.
Thank you so much, Mr. Watson. I think that's very important what you've said, that we deal with stress every day. Our clients come to us to relieve their own stress, but then the question becomes, then how do we as social workers ensure that we don't carry other people's stresses with us, but also we create that valve that Mrs. Matikisela-Theo was talking about, so that it doesn't burn and then the pot want to burst because other people have put their stress. Mrs. Matikisela-Theo, I see your hand. Please jump in there.
Thank you so much. I was just wondering, as the speakers were talking, from the different parts of the continent and the world that we have here. And I think what was very interesting for me is the comment around the fact that we see ourselves as not being enough or important. I think it was important, right?
Yes,
Important.
yes.
So then I started reflecting as I was listening and thinking to myself, you know, when we are moving from our matric, which is our high school levels, we're moving from that last class into the university practice, into social work. There is this sense that, you know, there are different degrees that you're doing, and social work might be an easier degree to, you know, do. And that kind of image of social work versus the kind of work, particularly in the you know, in the human side of social work, where you're dealing with children, you're dealing with women, you're dealing with families, you're dealing with violence, that kind of setup, that image of, oh, you know, I'm not going to do medicine, or medicine is full, you know, there's space in the social work department, I could do social work and maybe, you know, track back to my medicine or whatever. There's a disconnect between what social workers actually do in the field and what the impression is from your higher education space. And that concerns me, because already you're starting off from a level of a self-image perspective that is very low. And so because I'm baffled by this image that it's also in South Africa, where you are looked at as not very important. You know, there's this disjuncture between, or a sort of a tension between what psychologists do, what educational psychologists do, clinical psychologists, and what even a clinical social worker does, and also a disparity in the remuneration that already sets the social work profession at the space of being less than, if you like. And I feel as though when we think about this perfectionism that Dr. Veronica was talking about, the perfectionism that we have as social workers, almost like an overcompensation to be able to meet the other professionals who are doing different things or similar things in the spaces that we occupy, as, you know, that we can do more than them. And so we are equal. I'm not sure that the tensions there for me are very interesting, and those intersections are very interesting to sort of look at, because we always say to our clients, look at the root cause. What is the root cause of what is happening to you? And we know, I will speak for the South African perspective, we know that there are a lot of young people who are already burning out, who want to change professions. First of all, because of the lack of opportunities within the social work field, but secondly, also because they've practiced for a year or two and they realize, this is not for me. I can't take this stress, this consistent hike of stress. I'm going to go into teaching and rather go into that field, or go into something else that is available to them. So I'm not sure what it is. that is allowing for us to have this not important, mentality. Very, very interesting that I just wanted to highlight.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Mrs. Theo. I think it's a very big question mark that hangs around our heads as social workers. And I don't know about you, colleagues, like everywhere you go, there's that impression that people have an idea of what is a social worker. And immediately when you say I'm a social worker, a person would just immediately jump and say, oh, you do this, this, this. And you look at them and like, no, there are different areas within the profession. There are colleagues who are there, but that is not the only definition of what is a social worker. And we find that a lot in a lot of spaces where it was, I can say it was previously not our space as social workers, or now we are dominating in it, because there has been a lot of, for example, I'm in private practice, so I'm in the employee wellness space. And a lot of people are amazed that we have social workers within the employee wellness space, because previously it used to be industrial psychologists and other professionals, but not us. But now we are finding ourselves in that space. And a lot of people be like, wow, I didn't know that, and I think there is the question that also we need to ask to say, as social workers within the profession, how do we create boundaries so that we are able to take care of ourselves before we get to the burnout? Because it's good and well that we are also talking about burnout. And I see your hand, Dr. Veronica, please, you can jump in. Then how do we challenge ourselves to say, how do we create boundaries? Whether it's boundaries within the profession itself as colleagues, within clients, within even our employers, who already expect us to excel in our work, but then at the same time, we also need to take care of ourselves. How do we create those boundaries to ensure that we don't get to that point of burnout and want to leave the profession? Dr. Veronica?
Thank you so much for the question. Before I go to the boundaries part, I would like to share, in the 90s, social work was seen as a non-essential career. And the salaries was very, very low. And we really had to prove ourselves as a profession and have, all the meetings on the right platforms to say, but we studied 4 years, a degree, the same way, for instance, a psychologist or another BA degree. So as we speak, I think our salaries is much better but we had to prove ourselves. So in terms of not so important is, how do we carry ourselves? When I went to court in the 90s, the magistrates and the prosecutors sometimes treated me as a nuisance of, you only a social worker. But you need to bring to the table and say, but you as a prosecutor are experienced and trained and qualified in your space. Same with me as a social worker. Now today, they cannot have a big court case without a social worker. So we need to take up space. We need to take our territories and carry ourselves worthy of being in the space. I was fortunate to work in the multidisciplinary team at a gender-based violence specialized unit. And the first point of contact in that unit was the social worker. So that case is make or break, depending on how you receive that client and how you really make sure the client is seen by all the other team in the profession. And then the social worker is the one to even see that until the finalization of the court case. So can you see the important threat of social work in the multi-professional team? So how do we get our boundaries? It is like, you need to know the wellness wheel. As a social worker, we are carers, we are nurturers. We are nourishing others' feelings and emotions. So we need to know the emotional wellness wheel. And I mentioned the different components. It's from emotional, psychological, spiritual, economic, relational, all of that and stuff. And I come back again to the buzzword self-awareness. Where is it that I need to pay more attention to? Because if I just study all the time because I want to have a PhD and I'm not taking good care of my family, somewhere along the line, that glass ball will drop. Now I sit with a PhD, but I'm divorced. My children are playing truancy. They dropped out of school, whatever. And then you will feel I'm a failure and stuff. So we need to keep the balance while we have our strict boundaries and our personal boundaries. Also, you need to have assertiveness to say, but you cannot make me work every weekend. I have a life outside of social work. I have a life outside of the office and stuff. So yes, without being rude and arrogant, we need to stand our ground. Carry your weight. Put on your mental as somebody who study as hard as your lawyer, your medical doctor, your engineer and stuff. Sit at the same tables. So don't be shy to come to the table. I'm thinking of the time of COVID. Who came to the table strongest? It was social workers. What would the hospitals be without medical social workers in that specific period of time? So we need to know our worth, know our boundaries, stand our ground. I submit.
Pearl, thank you.
Thank you
Can I
so much,
just
Dr.
jump
Veronica.
in
That
there?
is so true. Yes, Sola, please do.
I mean, wow, I'm just so honored to be in the space and to listen to everybody sharing their insights. A lot to think about. And I think if we have more of these spaces, we can definitely find ways of assisting each other in the field and also for the social workers who are coming up. And I know you mentioned the like being in school, being in university, coming out. And I remember there was one I saw a few weeks ago, an advert for studying social work. And it said, so the description was social workers work with vulnerable groups. And I mean, that for me was it just for me, I felt like, okay, we do work with vulnerable groups or individuals, but I feel like even at the university level, there's a lack of understanding or there's a lack of acknowledgement for how broad and robust this profession is, where you find us in the medical field, and you find us in schools, and you find us in corporate and HR. I mean, social work in itself is a holistic profession, and I think we require even the university structures to acknowledge that about us. I mean, the university structure should at first, second, third level be teaching us about the different possibilities of what social work is. And I feel like even in practice, we're only given options to go to the family center or the department, the social services department, and we don't get to see just how big and broad this profession is. So if we definitely start by talking on the image that we get in school. And I think that is where we come from with this imposter syndrome, where we feel like we are not worthy to sit in the room with other like counseling and therapy professions. And just lastly, I want to talk about how social work, this was something that was said by a lecturer who was telling us about how social workers start the counseling skills from first year. From first year, you're learning all these counseling skills, methods of interviews. From first year right till third year, you are taught in group work, whereas if like me, who did psychology up until third year, it was never taught to us in a skill format. Only when you go to master's level do you start having these counseling skills taught to you, because I don't think even at honors they really delve into it. So, I mean, we are a really prestigious group of people. It's just that we ourselves don't know it. We don't acknowledge that about ourselves. And I think we need to start for ourselves acknowledging how great we are and how amazing the work we do is. And that way we can start loving ourselves, having that self-awareness and putting ourselves first. If we don't love ourselves and we don't love what we do and we don't see the worth in it, we're going to be having this conversation next year, same time as well. How are we going to take care of ourselves? Because we're not able to put ourselves in the same or even in a better light than our counterparts. So yeah, that's I mean, I don't have quite the question, but I think maybe it is talking to, because I feel like most of our speakers are academics, and speaking to how then does our education system as social workers impact on this imposter syndrome that we have. Hey, well, who the hell is this?
Sorry about that, colleagues. Something just flashed in my eyes, and I don't know what happened there. Thank you so much, Zola. I think that's a very important topic that it will definitely need its own hour, 2 hours to have a conversation on, to say then how then do we change, and not even change, make it more advanced for the here and now in terms of what is happening within the practicing space and also what is happening at university, because I do understand the gap that you are talking about. There was another colleague I was engaging with that found out that I'm in private practice, and then they made a comment to say that actually I don't even remember my lectures talking about private practice until maybe I was in fourth year. And within the other professions, you get going into business, going into private as something that is being promoted because it's been talked about from the ground root. And it's very important for us as social workers to say that how do we support each on this one, to say that being in the profession, yes, we do want to take care of ourselves and practice self-care, but then as professionals, how do we support each other to ensure that we take that self-care, we push the profession, we sing the song of the importance of our profession? And I'm bringing you in, Mr. Calvin, because you mentioned something about supervision. It's important for us to go to supervision. Maybe if you can also just come in to say that from your own point of view, how can we as professionals support each other? Because it will go a long way if we are all there for each other, so that I know that if the next colleague is going through burnout, how do I support them instead of making them feel guilty for them wanting to take leave, and also not making it seem like if you go, there will be that gap. Work is not going to continue without you, because that also brings that guiltiness that we were talking about. It's very important to say that. How do we support each other as colleagues within the profession? And Mr. Kelvin, if you could just come in there for us. Is he there? Kelvin? Okay, I think we have lost him there. Colleagues.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. Yes.
I'm here. Okay, thank you so much. So I think maybe as social work colleagues, the most important thing is to share, the challenges that we'll be facing with other colleagues, and those that will be on the receiving end, to hear the challenge that the challenge that will be being shared, by other colleagues. They should also try, by all means, to listen attentively from the colleagues that will be facing some challenges, because it is always critical to share your emotions. Basically, when you're talking about issues to do with self-care and burnouts, because the moment that you do not share issues that will be affecting you, in most cases, the end result, obviously, it will be a tragedy. You know, I like what my other colleague mentioned earlier on, that he actually got involved in an accident, you know, because he had got a lot of issues going on his mind, something like that, you know. And as a result, if you are not able to share the issues that you are facing, in most cases, it will be really a tragedy. And I also think that there's the aspect of clinical supervision. Like here in Zimbabwe, there was an organization that I once worked for, whereby as a social worker, you could also attend for counseling sessions, you know, to share the challenges that you are facing to a counselor, a professional counselor. And also at the same time, there are support groups which are also there. And there are also team building sessions, something like that, where you get to interact with other social workers, get to share some challenges that you are facing, and also the best practices, you know, as social workers, you know, coming up together, sharing ideas, and getting also to learn some critical lessons learned, which are evidence-based, you know, in terms of trying to improve the well-being of social workers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Calvin. And those are very important points that one needs to look at in terms of, you know, clients always come to us to distress and let their head down and actually just let everything go. But we also forget that debriefing is also important for us. It's also important for us as professionals to go for counseling, to also go and offload the things that we are carrying, whether it's from our own personal lives, whether it's from work and all of that. So it really is important for us to go for the counseling that we always tell our clients to go for. And this will never get old. Practice what you preach. It's very important for us to get to that point that as professionals, we start practicing what we are preaching to our clients. Zola, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Pearl. I think this has been such an amazing and fruitful space, and we have come together and shared ideas, thoughts, and even techniques on how we can prioritize self-care. And you spoke about something so important, counseling, and I think hand in hand with counseling is supervision.